Welcome to the Growth Engine podcast. Today we're joined by Arlette Lee, Director of Marketing at Aravis Capital. Arlette's a seasoned marketing leader with over 15 years of experience in the financial services industry. At Aravis Capital, Arlette has spearheaded initiatives that have significantly enhanced brand visibility and client engagement, evidenced by the firm winning finalist for Best Website and Best Video in the Investment Week Marketing and Innovation Awards in 2024. Her expertise spans digital strategy, event marketing, and customer relationship management, driving innovation and strategic growth in highly competitive markets. Beyond her corporate achievements, Arlette founded a sustainable fashion brand, showcasing her commitment to ethical business practices and creative entrepreneurship. Arlette, thank you for joining us today, coming down to see us. To get us going, can you give us a bit of background on your career to date and ultimately what led you to your role at Aravis Capital?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the invitation to be here today, David.
Pleasure.
So I began my career at Lazard Asset Management in the hedge fund team, and I was there for 2 years before I was invited to join a global investment management firm in Mayfair. So I took up this opportunity because it was to work with some star hedge fund manager there, and worked there for 7 years, navigating the space. We looked after launching 7 hedge funds, and then we moved from the hedge fund space into the long only space. After being there for 7 years, I decided I wanted to have a mini career break. So I went off traveling, and it was there on my travels I came up with an idea to set up a sustainable fashion brand.
Right, nice.
And I went about setting that up in Peru. And for me, that was a pivotal moment in my career because it shaped where I am and what I'm doing now at Aravis.
Right. Fabulous. There's so many intriguing stories in there.
Yeah.
Firstly, where did you go traveling?
So I went all through Asia, New Zealand, Australia, and then finally my destination was South America,
Right.
Machu Picchu.
Right, beautiful. And what was the moment that you decided to set up a sustainable clothing label?
Well, it was actually in New Zealand, walking along Golden Bay, I think, or something. I simply said I wanted to always be a buyer, fashion buyer, and I didn't do that when I left university. So no one would give me a job to be a fashion buyer after I'd been working 10 years in finance. So I thought, okay, let's try doing it myself. And that's what I did. So not only did I design a fashion range, I put it out there to the market. And to bring it all back on the marketing side, I learned the 360 marketing scope of what is needed to build a brand from scratch.
Fabulous.
Through from the brand identity all the way through to video, and what we're doing right now, David.
Brilliant. So that did you enjoyed doing that, presumably?
I did, but as a one-man band, I realised that I didn't have all the skills to do everything, and I didn't have the budget. If we all had a Beckham budget, that would be brilliant. Yet it taught me to be resourceful. Just like in finance or any industry, it's all about networks and your relationships.
What happened between the brand and arriving in the current role? How did you get into Aravis?
Actually, David, I simply decided I wanted to have a holiday and it would be nice to be employed again. There are advantages of being an employee versus self-employed.
Of course, yeah.
So the opportunity arose to work for Aravis Capital, and I thought it would be slightly different because they're a third-party marketing business. So as an agency, we're matching up investors with investment opportunities, and they said to me, you could bring in your own flair and make the role your own. I would be their first dedicated marketeer. So essentially going into a relatively new business while they were 5 years old,
Right.
I could have a blank canvas and go in and build the marketing function up. And that has proved to work well. I'm here 9 years later. So
Brilliant. Well, congratulations.
thank you.
What a
Thank
story.
you.
That's fabulous. Tell us a little bit more about Aravis. What it when you came in, it was 5 years. So
Yes.
it's now
So now
12
we're,
years old.
14 years, and we're 11 employees. We're in an open plan office in a fantastic location, Pall Mall, which is brilliant
Yeah.
because that's where most of our investors are. So regularly we have the fund managers over. We represent a number of select investment managers,
Okay.
and our goal is to match them up with investors who want to invest in their funds. So our sales team actively all the time on the road or having meetings with their prospects before the fund managers from the US or China come into town, and then they have their follow-up meetings, etc.
And this is purely in the institutional space.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's a very interesting space, and it's one I don't know a huge amount about. So I'm really keen to learn more, and I'm definitely keen to start diving into the marketing tactics that you found effective in your time. But more of that later.
Yeah.
More of that later. We'll come on to that. I guess the top line question really around all of this is that how marketing's been changing in financial services, especially within asset management. How have you adapted the strategy since when you started off to where you are now to make sure that you're maintaining that engagement, supporting the sales team, and ultimately driving effectiveness?
Right. Very good question. So since when I joined, it was predominantly the marketing was on email campaign management and one-to-one meetings. And then with the pandemic, we saw that there was a shift to webinars.
Right.
Everyone had to do them, and there was no way out. We all know we all had to adapt. So with that, we jumped on the bandwagon and saw great success with the webinars we produced because they were very high quality against what our peers were putting out there. It was working really well, David, for us for the 2 years up until 2023. And we saw from our metrics that we were achieving a 67% conversion rate against a benchmark of 45%. So when I'm looking at the conversion, I'm talking about people registering and then signing up to the webinar and audience engagement, etc. But the change was in 23. I think everyone noticed there was a sense of webinar fatigue. And then people were excited to be back on the road and traveling. So the increase of that opportunity for human interaction, there was a decline in people tuning into these webinars. So I think part of the question was about the analytics and how we measured what
almost
we would
like the
do
effectiveness.
next.
What was your thinking around that?
We use this platform, Big Marker, and their 22 report analysed 1.6 million webinars.
Okay.
And the findings were that if you push the webinar out or have it live on a Wednesday between 11 to 1 p.m. and everything is with subtitles, you'll keep your audience and that will be enough, as well as 45 minutes optimum length.
Okay.
So we made those adjustments from 60 to 45 minutes. And that, David, was a challenge because the portfolio managers are used to having a structure, that length of time. They liked having the audience engagement of the Q&A. But if we're not having the audience dial in, or they're saying, we don't really need these webinars because we're meeting them face to face, we need to do something in order to keep everyone happy.
So you essentially cut a quarter of the time off. And what was the results from that?
We didn't notice any improvement in engagement, and just felt, okay, let's stay ahead of the game here. Webinars, I think, are dry. It's just a PowerPoint presentation, quite static. And in marketing, we all need to be invigorated and have something fresh, new, uplifting. So with that in mind, in 22, we decided to try a bit more of our marketing strategy using video.
Okay.
So with that in mind, we started doing these 10-minute videos when our managers would come into town, or virtually, and it would be a bit more spontaneous. It wouldn't be as planned and structured as a quarterly webinars.
Did you can the webinars completely?
No, we didn't. No, we didn't can them. This was like almost like a test pilot to see where would this go? Does it actually work? And we didn't use video. It wasn't centric to our strategy other than these webinars. And the effectiveness of these 10-minute videos, because like what Hub do, we put them on LinkedIn, and you can upload the full 10-minute video onto LinkedIn and people would watch it. So we've had brilliant engagement. The viewership's gone through the roof.
Fantastic.
And it's building our profile, all the intangible effects. We're involving our sales team. So they're acting as anchors, being the host of with the portfolio manager who's in town.
So it's raising their profile within the industry as well. And are you asking the sales team to also be sharing it across their social profiles? Or is it only going through the main company profile?
Absolutely. I am always going on about please share, like, repost.
Yeah.
Because we have found that, well, it's a LinkedIn stat actually, that it said 30% of a company's LinkedIn engagement will come from your employees. So create a LinkedIn advocacy program, or I know UBS have a Rockstar program for their LinkedIn ambassadors.
Oh, do they? Interesting.
I heard Cisco are training up all their staff to be LinkedIn gurus, and for us internally at Aravis, the sales team are all on board. They are now sharing, reposting, etc.
Re-LinkedIning.
Yeah, exactly. So without doubt, it's key to any business, I think. But then you do have to look at the compliance regulations around that, and ensure that everyone's on board, has the right disclaimers if they're putting it on, and it adheres to any of your company brand guidelines, etc.
How do you manage that? Do you have internal compliance within?
Yes.
Do you speak to them, get them on board, say, look, this is what we're trying to do. We want to be working with you, kind of not against you. It's often the way with compliance sometimes. What's your approach to tackling that?
So essentially, I work with our CEO, and he also looks after the compliance, and work with an outsourced compliance officer. And they're always keeping us update with all the regulations in the landscape. So for example, I think it was last year, we needed to make everything ESMA FSA compliant, and on all communications that would go out, you need to display on the top right corner or throughout the communication, marketing communication. So we'll implement all the work alongside the regulatory requirements and ensure that all of the communications we upload or are shared on any of our social media channels comply with the financial promotions regulations.
Yeah. Have you noted, because I get the sense that you're measuring the effectiveness of all of the output, and from the time that you had to, previous to putting all of the compliance statements of marketing communications on the outputs and then subsequently doing it, have you noticed any drop off by doing that, or any noticeable difference?
No, none whatsoever, really, because it's
that's quite nice to
the
know,
audience. It's not impacting the audience anyway. It's simply just a visual, and then having the right copy disclaimer beneath the video, etc. And then we encourage our managers or affiliates to cross promotion. So if we're posting something, they can repost it on their LinkedIn feed, but it's not always possible because of their compliance.
Sure.
So we're very much focused on using our own Aravis channel and encouraging our team, the 11 of us, to repost. And that's always boosting the Aravis profile as well as building all Aravis team members' profile.
Beyond the LinkedIn piece, is there any other marketing campaign or experiments that you've done that you're particularly proud of that you can share?
Yes. So after we developed the 10-minute manager videos, we needed to continue pushing out quarterly fund manager updates for our investors. And given that the 45-minute webinars were not working, and looking at the industry benchmarks, which showed to me that the average video length was 15 minutes.
Right.
I worked with that stat and said, okay, we need to build a 15-minute, maybe a newsreel format. So to make it engaging for our investors, the content would be punchy. It would be the fund manager providing us an update on the top contributors, detractors, the performance, the market outlook.
Right.
But in terms of time, this was a challenge because they were used to having 45 minutes.
They must have loved you. You've gone from saying you've got 60 minutes, now 45, and now you've gone in and said, can we do this in 15? How did that go down?
But I made it happen, David.
Amazing.
So after doing a competitor analysis, I thought that was key to see, is there anyone else doing this out there? And I found none of our competitors were doing it. Then I looked at peer groups and I found one manager was doing some kind of video campaign management. So I thought, as my boss would always say, let's give it a go, try and change. It's something new. So we pitched it to the fund managers and it actually did go down well after I could answer all their questions of namely, but what about the Q&A?
Yeah.
Because to them, they were used to that interaction with the investors, prospects dialing in.
Sure.
So if you're eliminating that 15 minutes, so we sold it that basically, okay, it's going to be short and punchy and animated.
Okay.
And with the newsreel format, we're animating the presentation slides throughout. There's ticker tape. It's all a lot more compelling and visual. And with that in mind, it's all worked out well. Everyone's been happy. There's been very positive feedback. We did have some challenges initially because we wanted to measure who was watching the video, and we put it on our website as gated content, yet realized if you have any barriers to entry, people now don't want to even give you your email address. So we removed that and quickly saw an uptick of 40%.
Right. Just from removing the gate.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's go back to the beginning of this. It seems really interesting what you've done. It's firstly, again, your levels of persuasion must be extraordinary to get fund managers to stop doing their 60-minute presentation and condense that into 15. I'm interested in the 15-minute length as well. Now, what you mentioned that you looked at an industry benchmark. Where was that you got that from?
So that was Vidyard.
Vidyard,
and they're
okay.
a consultancy.
And they've got a player, haven't they?
Yeah.
A video player. It's an interesting number because I remember reading a few years ago now when TEDx was, or TED Talks were everywhere, that they had conducted lots of research, and I think that they came the ideal length of a video which was quite informative video like TED Talks are. I think that they came up with a number of either 14, 15 or 16 minutes. So very, very similar to Vidyard's figure. So that length of time, I guess, is long enough to give quite a detailed level of information, but short enough to keep people captivated and not lose their attention. It's an interesting number, isn't it?
Yes, and but I've also noticed that you're not necessarily going to have your audience watch that full 15 minutes. So it's critical to make the first, I think they say, 9 seconds.
Right.
We have such a short attention span now, so that we have to create a hook and be concise in our introduction, etc. So for us, we're saying we're delivering you a 15-minute digestible interactive insight all in under 15 minutes flat.
Right. So that's always up front to let them know what's going on. And
then I think as we're building momentum, we're only 3 quarters in, so we produced 3 so far. It's gaining traction, yet to pique people's curiosity, we are having to break that 15 minutes down into a 2-minute clip, or the optimum is a 60-second clip.
So I remember a story about TV formats, and it always sticks in my mind because I think it's really, really useful. And it's something that TV shows use all the time, and I don't think we use it enough in business content. And that's the purpose of a format, is that you can come into it at any point through the show, and if it's a good format, you'll roughly know, right, I'm near the beginning, I'm near the middle, or I'm near the end. And probably showing my age, but the one I always use an example is if you come into the middle of a show of X Factor, you'll know if it's at the end of X Factor or at the beginning of X Factor, and that's because it's got such a tight format. And I think where you're going is that I think formats are really useful if you're trying to build audience and audience growth, because they become used to the format, but you've got to tweak that format to get it right. So you're 3 episodes in. How are the numbers looking?
They're improving, and I think it's all about touching on what you've just said, is building consistency. So essentially it's a new product and people are building familiarity with it. They're slowly starting to catch on to the new brand name, which is Aravis Inside Track, delving deep into the fund updates. So we're really seeing how this product's going to evolve, and I think it's going to take a full year, so 4 episodes at least minimum, to see how that traction goes. But the feedback from investors is that they like it, it's punchy, and that we're not only offering video updates, we have long, lengthy updates. So we're trying to cover all aspects, really, to keep everyone happy with whatever their needs are.
You mean you have the short 15-minute version, but you have a longer one as well, do you?
We have long form content, so a quarterly update letter.
I see,
In the content production, we'll reference that if you want to find out more, you can read the quarterly update.
Got it.
Instead of it all being covered in the old format, 60-minute
Yeah. And how have the portfolio managers taken? Have they embraced the shorter format now?
They have, because we are saving them time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And also because it's on demand and it's not live, that reduces the stress level. You don't have to worry about the technology all going wrong, or audience engagement, or anything that may come up, which we've all experienced. So I think now we literally have a format that we have a prep call for 30 minutes a couple of days before.
Yeah.
And then on the day, it takes up 30 minutes of their time maximum.
Yeah. So
And then the process of compliance approval, we have to make sure that's all streamlined, and hope to push that content out then within 7 days.
how are you managing that? Because there's a lot to get done, isn't there? From when you've
A lot.
finished shooting to turn that around within 7 days. That's impressive.
Yes, it's a challenge again. So I think initially it's having a conversation with the fund managers and their compliance, and streamlining that process. Now we've got a production process in place, and they know what they can or cannot say. And we have all the right disclaimers on the video content. It makes it a lot smoother, the whole post-production process. Yet the element which is taking time is where adding subtitles, we're having to check all the subtitles. AI is fantastic, but it's not good enough. It's not there. It's saying astrology instead of strategy.
Right. Yeah.
So we have to go through with a fine-tooth comb and make sure everything is 100% accurate.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? You read the kind of software, and it's kind of saying, yeah, it's sort of 90% accurate, and you think, oh, that sounds pretty good, and you realize that actually that means 1 word in 10 is probably wrong.
Exactly.
It is quite, yeah, there is a way to go. I'm keen to dive into a broader area again within marketing. Data is something that all marketers are working with, and it seems that there's increasing technology, more and more data is available to us. I'm interested in how you use data analytics specifically within your marketing strategy to help you with decisions that you want to make within your campaigns, but also to actually start measuring their impact and the effectiveness of that they're having to the overarching strategy.
Well, I totally agree. Data is critical to everything that we're doing, and we're constantly monitoring our campaign effectiveness by using our campaign management system and the analytics. At Aravis, we're using MailChimp, so monthly, any of the material we're disseminating, we're looking back at how that's performed. We go to the analytics page and look at the click map and can see where we have a high click-through rate, or where we thought there would have been engagement, for example, clicking on the videos.
Yeah.
If that has reduced slightly, why is that? Is that because the video was at the top of the page or the bottom of the page? And where are people opening these emails? Is it on their desktop or mobile? Because that's all going to impact the open and conversion rates.
Sure.
So we have to be monitoring that regularly, because everything is visual.
Does that then impact on content for the subsequent ones that you're doing? If you're finding insights based on that analysis of the data, are you adapting that going forward?
Yes, all the time. So, for example, around 6 months ago, we noticed that if we were just showing some attachments as 3 links, 3 lines instead of images, that was working better for a period, because it was reducing the space on the email coming through.
Interesting. See, that would sound counterproductive, wouldn't it? You wouldn't have assumed that.
It was it was a funny one because I would
Yeah.
always think visual, we're visual people,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
the visuals are taking up space when you're scrolling through your news feed.
Right.
So
Right.
if you're just putting the crucial information at the top
Yeah.
and making sure the introduction is dear name,
Yeah.
which also I think is very important for firms to do. Since I joined Arabis, I made sure all communications that went out, we addressed the investor by their first name.
Right. Yeah.
And I've noticed still we're receiving inbound emails
Mm-hmm.
where there's no acknowledgement of our names.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it would seem very basic to us that personalization is key in order to capture that attention.
That piece of using analytics to find out that the links on their own have performed better, did that remain constant or did that vary?
No, so we change it up again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think it's simply just changing the visual display of your communications all the time
Yes.
helps. And it might be too text heavy or too visual heavy.
Sure.
And we definitely find that by shortening any emails has more of an impact on our readership.
That's how you use data.
Yeah.
I think we can sometimes get obsessed by data as well. And you mentioned about simple things about addressing people by their first names. Is there anything else that you can tell us about a more, what I'd call a more human-centric approach to marketing that you've learned or you put into place?
Yes. So with our sales team, one example is that we encourage them to take photos whilst they're on their roadshow trips with the managers in Geneva, Switzerland. A simple photo of them in front of the lake, etc.
Right.
And then they will send it to us. We'll post it on LinkedIn, and it makes them relatable to their audience. It shows they're active, they're out there. It creates a bit of camaraderie in the office because they're all saying, "Oh, whose post had the most likes, impressions, etc."
Right.
So that's more on the internal side. And then we decided to launch another video series, which is a Meet the Fund Manager series. Okay. So this series, David, is basically an introduction video to the philosophy, process and strategy of the fund. So a new prospect can view it and see, is this really of interest, and pre-qualify themselves really before having a one-to-one meeting and gauge, is this really of interest? This, we hope, is saving our fund managers time, and we've wanted to do it for years. We've finally got around to doing it this year, so they're all on our website. We're proud of it, and the fund managers were all on board with that because they can repurpose that content now on their own websites as well.
Of course. How long were those pieces?
10 minutes.
Right. And the engagement levels have been good on those?
Very good. And they're all hosted on our website. So that's a main platform where people will see them, and on our partners, the fund managers platform.
Is there a format to those?
Yes, there is. So it's an introduction, again, an introduction of who they are.
Yeah.
Everything, again, it's all animated. We sat down with the sales team beforehand and looked at their pitch deck and broke the pitch deck down into the core sections, and then created this video series around that. So the Selects funds we represent, we have the same structure for each video.
Great.
And they're all around 10 to 12 minutes.
And are the sales team using those videos to sort of send to prospects, and how are they being incorporated into the, I guess, business as usual for Aravis?
So they are sending them out. They're linking it in their emails. They're sending out to their prospects. They're essentially putting a visual and a link which is going to our website.
Great.
And that's all a great tool for everyone.
Have you seen good engagement from, or have you had any feedback from prospects?
It's quite early days yet,
Right,
because we only signed off on them, I think, 2 months ago.
Right. So fairly still hot off the press.
Exactly. So, but the fund managers love doing them, because essentially when we filmed it in their offices in One Manager in San Francisco, it really provided an insight into their environment, and you could see behind the scenes what's happening.
Right.
Build familiarity, make the fund manager relatable, again going back to human centric.
Yes. Moving on to content consumption, thinking about broader marketing messages, how do you make sure that from a marketing positioning strategy that your messages are actually cutting through to your target audience?
It's a really good question, David, because I think we're all being overwhelmed with content these days. And I read that in the 70s, a human was seeing between 500 to 1,500 ad messages a day. Right. And now as humans, we're seeing between 6,000 to 10,000 marketing messages a day.
Oh my goodness.
So how, as a firm, are we going to cut through that noise? So we're going back and we look at our audience, and we're basically providing them with all the material possible, whether it's long form content or short form content.
Okay.
And find that everyone has a different aptitude. The allocators, they like the videos, but also they want the more detailed reports, the quarterly update reports, the quarterly letters, which the managers write, are very important to them. Some of the managers we work with, they provide us with a monthly letter, which again is very long and detailed, comprehensive, and the investors love that. So I think it is providing the full spectrum of resource.
There's different communications for different roles, aren't there? So marketing could be, whether it's I guess top of funnel awareness generation is probably the more short form content. But when you're into that, am I going to make a purchase decision? Am I going to invest in this fund? You probably want a bit more detail, a bit more meat on the bones, which is perhaps where that longer form material comes into play.
And that's why I think everyone is beginning to adapt to use a video, because they're realizing the explainer, introductory videos are key to bring someone in at the top level. And then further down the funnel, you're going to need to provide the more comprehensive material. And then at the next stage, they're going to say, okay, we'd like to have a meeting with a manager, and on goes a process.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned this before about respectful of portfolio managers' time. Having this kind of top of funnel content helps them to cover more ground, really, doesn't it? And focus their time on the actual conversions that are nearer to that purchase decision. So I'm presumably that's helping achieve more, again, with both limited resources from a budget point of view, from also a human point of view.
Exactly. Well, we hope so. And also we have to bear in mind that we have them on the road with doing numerous meetings throughout Europe. So when they come to London, they're traveling through Switzerland, Madrid, Italy, France. So that takes up maybe a week of their time.
Of course, yeah.
So we're always aware of the time element, and that they really want to be at their desks managing the portfolio.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I think that's what, we work with a lot of clients and portfolio managers, and it's all, the common thing is, I understand marketing, but if I'm doing this, then I'm not doing my day job. So
exactly.
it's that constant battle. Again, maybe sort of jumping out a little bit, big picture. Lots of marketing is a fast moving space. Digital marketing, there's always different trends that are cropping up. What's are you focused on at the moment that's having the most significant impact on the way that you work at Aravis?
I believe AI is revolutionizing everything in marketing. And we're looking at it as a complementary tool. It's not a replacement. It's basically a tool we can leverage to free up marketers' time so we can focus on other strategic and creative endeavors. By using the right AI tools, it can help us with translations, copy, data analysis, and it really is refining what platforms you're using and how it works within your business. And for us, we're at the very early stage. We're only really working with one platform, which is Firefly, with our videos, and find that is working well. It helps with transcripts, copy for LinkedIn posts, etc. Yet again, it's where it's more a test phase, I think.
I see. But you are finding it as a reliable tool, one that the team have embraced and enabling you to achieve more with, again, human resources at your fingertips.
Absolutely. But I think we have to keep our own curiosity and not be too reliant, because if people are all using chatbots and saying, write an email, it's going to become generic, and we need to personalize everything.
Yeah. And then your point earlier about the volume of marketing messages that we're exposed to, it's got the potential to increase beyond that, but they're all being written out by the same AI tools, which is going to make it quite a dull place. Diving down into your specific sector, institutional marketing, within asset management, what changes do you anticipate happening within that specific sector?
We're anticipating increased regulation, and we're already seeing that as the landscape is ever evolving. So any new regulations we're needing to implement, and that in turn is meaning we're going to have to streamline our processes of production. It may delay it. So we need to essentially be adaptable and build that into our content marketing strategy of how it's all going to plan out.
Yeah. Do you see AI helping support in that?
I wouldn't say no, because I think there's room for AI to help. Yet I think compliance has a key role, and there are different compliance requirements in institutions, and I think it's going to be hard for AI to replace that role, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that the law firms are increasingly using AI now to start to put elements into their workflow, and I've always thought, well, if legal firms are managing to do that, surely there must be a way for compliance teams to start bringing that in. But I agree, it seems a little way off, that though firms seem less willing to embrace that part within compliance, presumably because the fines would be so great if you fall foul of them.
It's true, and I think you always need a human to touch the work and go through it.
Yeah, and certainly to sign off. And people entering into the industry, what's your view of marketing with the future that we're talking about, and the things that we can see in the near term? What advice would you give to aspiring marketers that are wanting to enter into financial services marketing?
I think they need to be agile, because it's a fast-paced, dynamic environment. So I would recommend that they invest in their learning. So there are great resources out there. LinkedIn Learning, I do lots of courses on there myself. Google, keep on top of the regulation requirements, and network. I think that is crucial in any industry, actually, because that's how we build relations, we foster trust and credibility, and in turn, that is building your personal brand profile, and the company you go to work for will build their profile.
Are you a member of the FS Forum?
Yes,
Yeah.
I have an interview with them tomorrow.
Oh, do you? Interesting. Oh, that's I mean, that's great for networking opportunities.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think that's a good place to. LinkedIn Learning. What courses have you done there?
So I did the generative AI course. I think
fabulous.
it was I did it earlier this year in February, and I thought it was quite good because it takes you through the processes, language models, how important your prompts are, and then at the end you get a certificate.
Yeah, brilliant.
And it's free, so
yeah,
what better way? And I think as a new marketeer, that's a great way to learn.
Of course. Well, and for seasoned marketeers as well, I think.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah, I've started to see more and more recently on people's LinkedIn profiles saying, "Oh, I've just completed this LinkedIn course." And a few years ago, that you didn't see that. They still did those updates on there, but I'm starting to see now much more senior folk within range of different sectors starting to do much more LinkedIn learning. So I'm not sure if that's everyone's attitude to learning has changed, or whether the quality of the LinkedIn learning has improved. I'm not sure, but I must get myself on a course.
And I think we all like that stamp on our LinkedIn personal profile.
Well, it's good, isn't it? It shows that you're keeping active and keeping up to date. Which again, marketing's fast moving space, so it's absolutely vital to do that. Arlette, thank you so much for joining us today.
David.
Thanks for giving us your wisdom, sharing all of the activity that you've been up to at Aravis. I wish you all the success in the future. And I'm intrigued to, once the cameras stop rolling, to quiz you a little bit more on all these countries that you've visited, including Peru. So thank you very much.
Thanks, David. It's very kind, and it's been an honour to be on the Growth Engine podcast.
Thank you for listening today to The Growth Engine. If you enjoyed this episode and like to hear more, please do subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from, and follow us on LinkedIn for regular updates, or on hubagency.co.uk. Thank you, and see you next time.